What's going on, everyone? Welcome into the Broncos Breakdown UDFA Tracker Day with the NFL Draft in the rearview mirror. We're going to check out all the undrafted free agents that Denver signed because they had a couple open roster spots since they only had 5 draft picks. There's a pretty good shot that the trend will continue of a UDFA making Denver's roster, right? Last year you had Jalen Virgil, Brandon Johnson, sort of, but not really, kind of a technicality. But Denver's had a long run of success at UDFAs, right? You've got a lot of notable guys who have made it at that spot before. Malik Reed, Chris Harris, Philip Lindsay, CJ Anderson. They had a long stretch of a UDFA making it every single year. So don't sleep on these guys, even if they're not, draft picks. There are still a lot of good players who come after the draft. So let's get started with our tracker, starting with an offensive tackle from Illinois, Alex Palczewski. I think he's got a good shot of making Denver's roster. They don't have a lot of great depth on the interior or on the offensive line, whether that's at interior or at the tackle spot. So Alex Palczewski is a pretty good shot of making this roster. Now, I have some notes on him that I want to read to you guys here. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I am not an encyclopedia when it comes to Alex Palczewski or all these UDFAs, but he's a very interesting player because here's why. He has a Big Ten record with 65 career starts across 3 different positions. He had 49 starts at right tackle at Illinois, 9 at right guard, and 7 at left guard. So he's a very versatile offensive lineman who can jump in at a pinch at a handful of different spots. So I think he's got a pretty good shot with the versatility upside of making Denver's roster. We're going to talk about the other guys in just a moment, but what position, in your opinion, did the Broncos miss out on in the draft? I think it's running back might be one, but maybe that means Javonte Williams is going to come back sooner rather than later. And if that's the case, I'm very excited to see that. Offensive line's probably another spot as well. Moving on to some other UDFAs, we're going to kind of rattle these off one after another. Thomas Incoom, edge rusher out of Central Michigan. Remember last year, Denver got like the bell of the ball in terms of UDFAs. Christopher Allen out of Alabama just could not stay healthy. So what I've got on Christopher Incoom, not a whole lot out there. Let me just Command F this bad boy, and then we're going to get him up for you guys. He was supposed to be in rounds 4 through 5. Size-wise, 6'4", 260 pounds. Here's the scouting report on him. He's best at converting speed to power with good pop in his hands. Tom Downey had him ranked as his 28th overall edge rusher. Like I said, projections were in that 6th to 7th round range, so I think Denver finding him as a UDFA feels like a pretty good get. Moving on to the next guy, this is Art Green, cornerback out of Houston. What do I have on Art Green? He's 6'2", 200 pounds, second team All-AAC. He had 2 interceptions last season. He was also the Independence Bowl defensive MVP. More on Green here. He's got good speed and reps to be a great special teamer, and Denver needs a lot of help at special teams. So the Broncos cannot skimp out at special teams this season. We got to see a 180 on that side of the football. Way too many big plays allowed in 2022, along with raw instincts and feel for routes. Moving on to our next UDFA, Devin Matthews, safety from Indiana. Another player from the Big Ten who has loads of experience. Here's what I got on Devin Matthews. He's 6'2", 205 pounds. His nickname, by the way, is The Monster. If your nickname is The Monster, yeah, I kind of want you on my football team. 5-year player at IU, 35 career starts. He was Indiana's Defensive Player of the Year in 2021, 4 interceptions in his career. We're going to look at the other UDFAs in just a brief moment, but help us reach 14,000 subscribers. We are 606 away. If you have not yet subscribed, consider going ahead and doing so and getting free Denver Broncos draft content. Well, draft content, news and rumors content with the draft over. We are your home on YouTube for all things Broncos. Let's check out some more UDFAs, starting with Nate Adkins. So Nate Adkins was originally at East Tennessee for a long time, eventually transferred to South Carolina as a grad transfer. 168 receiving yards last year for the Gamecocks, originally from Knoxville, Tennessee. Adkins is a blocking tight end, and Denver last season added some blocking tight ends. They added one in free agency this season, so this is a ground game type of addition here. Emmanuel Wilson is next up, running back out of Fort Valley State. What do we got on Emmanuel? 1,200 yards and 15 touchdowns last season. It's a D2 college, by the way, Fort Valley State in Georgia. Now, remember, Denver did not draft a running back. So there is a good shot that whether it's a UDFA or someone else they bring along in the next couple of months, that they could crack the 53-man roster as RB3 or something, especially if they put Javonte Williams on IR to start the season, right, after going from the PUP list and then activating him later on, kind of like Greg Dulcich. That would save a roster spot. So don't sleep on Emmanuel Wilson. Maybe sneak on the roster at that RB3 position. Henry Byrd, is next up, offensive guard out of Princeton. Don't have a ton on Mr. Byrd other than he went to Princeton, so he's probably a pretty bright guy. And like I said for Palczewski earlier on, there's not a ton of depth at that offensive line for Denver, so all these UDFA linemen, they are probably in a good spot to make the roster in terms of looking at all 32 teams. Where's a good place to be a UDFA lineman? Denver is a pretty good option in my opinion. Taylor Grimes is the next guy we're going to talk about here. Taylor Grimes, a 5'11", 190-pound wide receiver. He was a transfer from Illinois State. He led the team in basically every single category the last 2 seasons. Taylor Grimes had 30 touchdowns total since 2021. 15 a season. So here are some more of the UDFAs we're going to talk about. First things first, though, we got a quick word from our sponsor over at Fanatics. So the NFL draft might be winding down, but Fanatics has awesome deals for Broncos country, including this t-shirt combo on sale when you go to chatsports.com/DEN combo. That link's in the comments and the description of today's video, so make sure you check it out today. We've got one more UDFA to look at, I believe, and then, no, we got more than just one more. We got a whole bunch more to look at here. So we're going to get those on screen for you guys as we start rattling off UDFA after UDFA. Seth Benson, another Iowa Hawkeye. He joins Riley Moss over at Mile High. Seth Benson, if I have any Iowa fans watching right now, he was the fan favorite linebacker, right? He's the guy that was a longtime starter in Iowa City, the middle of the defense, doesn't have crazy athleticism, doesn't have a great frame necessarily, but he always had a knack for finding himself in the middle of the play. Seth Benson, 6'1", 231 pounds. He started 34 games over the last 3 seasons. He went from a 2-star recruit to one of the key pieces of this Hawkeye defense. In his career, 258 tackles, 13 tackles for loss, 5 pass breakups, 5 sacks, and 2 interceptions. He got overshadowed by Jack Campbell, a first-round pick to Detroit, but I like this acquisition, this signing rather, for Denver to try and improve the interior of their linebacker room and add some depth because Josie Jewell missed some time last season. Alex Singleton was the only consistent thing. Not quite sure exactly where Drew Sanders is going to be on this roster, so Benson has a decent shot of making this roster with only 5 drafted players. Now, who is the favorite UDFA signing that Denver had? We're going to look through some more names, but maybe it's someone we already talked about. I like Seth Benson. I like Alex Palczewski. I think those 2 guys have a fair shot of making the 2023 roster. Back on track here, Dallas Daniels, wide receiver, Jackson State. So, what do we have on Mr. Dallas Daniels? All-time name, by the way. Kind of a porn star name. Went from Arizona Community College to Northeastern Oklahoma A&M, then Western Illinois, and finally Jackson State. So the guy lived out of a suitcase pretty much all through college. He played in the Shrine Bowl in Vegas this year. Dallas Daniels joins a wide receiver room that appears to be pretty much set in stone, especially with drafting Marvin Mims. But who knows? We had a couple wide receivers as UDFAs make the roster last year. Kris Leach, you're up to bat next here, tight end from Kent State. Here's what I have for Mr. Leach. 94 yards last season. He started his career off as a redshirt freshman at Western Kentucky before transferring to Kent State. He's a blocking tight end. Another player that's brought in to help improve the run game. And all in all, we're talking UDFAs here, right? You're not looking for needs all that much. You are looking for guys who are hidden gems, right, that somehow got lost in the shuffle and you think could be a valuable football player to your team. PJ Mustipher is the next guy up. He was the player on the thumbnail for today's video because he's a bit more recognizable last name-ish. His brother Sam Mustipher was a 2-year starter for the Chicago Bears at center. Now, PJ Mustipher is on the other side of the line of scrimmage, defensive tackle. Tom Downey had him ranked as his 26th best tackle. 2-down nose guard with good power and leadership traits. Great tackler over the course of his career. Those are really the big notes I've got on him. He comes from a big football family. Like I said, Sam Mustipher, a center out of Notre Dame, starter for the Bears for a couple of seasons. His dad played collegiate ball. PJ goes undrafted. He winds up in Denver. Another player that I think has a good chance of maybe cracking this 53-man roster. And our final guy we're going to look at here, the last UDFA signing, is Darius Gaines. Darius Gaines, a cornerback out of Western Colorado. Not a whole lot on Darius Gaines, but hey, a bit of a local guy, if you will. And I always love when pro teams approach UDFA signings as, all right, are there any fan favorites from our fans' favorite colleges, right? Are there any popular players from the local colleges nearby that our fans are going to love and appreciate if we at least give them a consideration? We're also going to toss $80,000 guaranteed their way, so at least they get some money in their pocket. So Darius Gaines comes over from Western Colorado. If you are ready for football with the draft over, UDFA season come and gone after one day. It's a fluid situation. I should have mentioned this at the top of the video. You might see some rookie minicamp invites, or you might see some releases and then new UDFA signings. That's just the nature of the beast. But if you are ready for football, like this video.